Welcome to Lesson 4 in Unit 24, Particle Picnic. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, why can we smell a cake baking from across the room? In this lesson, students continue to investigate how matter changes in baking a cake. They investigate gases and ask questions about how the cake changes. They explore how particles move in the three states of matter. Students figure out that matter is made up of particles that we cannot see. We can use models that show how these particles move to explain our observations. Students make connections to the storyline by developing a model to explain how matter is transformed during the cake baking process. There are several opportunities for ELA cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 24 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 3 to 4 days to complete. To begin the engage portion of the lesson, you'll remind students of the anchoring phenomenon and their goal of using science to create a meal for the community picnic. You'll ask students about the ways they've seen matter change and the ways that changes in matter can create a new substance. You'll display the steps in baking a cake and remind students of the states of matter they've already identified. Then you'll ask students what type of change occurred as the cake baked and how they know this was a chemical change. You'll then light a vanilla-scented candle and tell students that it will represent the smell that comes from a cake as it is baking in the oven. You'll check in with students across the room until everyone can smell the candle. You'll revisit the driving question board and add any new questions and highlight others connected to the learning goals of this lesson by calling attention to questions about why a cake smells good as it bakes. For the explore portion, you'll set up the syringe investigation. You'll put students in pairs and provide them with the materials for the investigation. Students will use the syringes to examine solids, liquids, and gases and begin to think about what is happening as a cake bakes at a microscopic level. There are tutorial slides to show the setup and procedure for the investigation. You'll have students follow the procedure and record their observations in their Syringe Investigation student journal page. In the explain portion of the lesson, students will engage in a class discussion. You'll invite students to gather and analyze their observations around their syringe investigation. You'll use the provided questions to guide the discussion around why can we smell a cake baking from across the room? The goal of this class discussion is to have students analyze data from their investigations to describe how gases behave. You will use the discussion to create the Lesson 4 summary chart. From the discussion, students should understand that the cake batter goes through a chemical change, and as it turns from a liquid to a solid, it releases a gas. We smell the gas as the particles take up space in a room. The summary chart discussion will start in the explain portion and conclude in the elaborate. During the discussion, you'll have students work in pairs on devices. You'll have students do the PhET States of Matter simulation and complete the data table on the States of Matter student journal page. You can post and discuss the particles vocabulary card. You'll then play The Particles of Your World by Crash Course Kids video. This video will summarize what students figure out from the PhET simulation. For the elaborate portion, you'll display the cake measurements and relight the vanilla-scented candle. You'll ask students questions about the particles in the candle wax and why we can smell it when it's burning and why we can smell a cake baking across a room. You'll add answers to the summary chart. You'll then update the class model and include it in the summary chart. You'll have students update their models on the Cake Baking Consensus Model student journal page. From the discussion, students should be able to update their model to show that the cake batter goes through a chemical change and turns from a liquid into a solid. As it changes, it releases a gas. We smell the gas as the particles take up space in a room. For the evaluate portion, you'll use the air pump from the kit to blow up a balloon. You'll ask students to draw a model of what is happening inside the balloon on the Balloon Inflation Student Journal page. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient them back to the driving question board. Ask students, did we answer any of the questions on our driving question board? If there are questions that have been answered, you'll remove them from the driving question board and place them on the summary charts. Use this as an opportunity to answer the section driving question, how does a cake change during baking? You'll then have students complete the Section 1 summative assessment. By the end of this lesson, students will have developed a model to describe how particles move in a solid, liquid, and gas. In the next section, students will investigate ways matter can be mixed together to make lemonade. For the optional extend, you can place students into groups and act out particle motion in solids, liquids, and gases. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.